We have a lot to talk about, and this event is really designed to have those discussions. And I know I've got some one-on-ones with the fireside chats that are coming later this afternoon, and I look forward to them. Because much has changed in our industry. And this is a new era for strategic sourcing. We're unlocking tech-enabled services for what the new managed services of tomorrow will be. Avasant Research has done significant, not just investment, but also data collection to understand what that will be. What's the backdrop? There are forces that are accelerating us to this new reality faster than we ever expected, and this is what we discovered through this study. Many of you know, just a few months ago, I talked about the impact of global conflicts. Specifically, not just Ukraine, but what the conflicts as they rise in the South China Sea, what it's doing to our supply chains, but also how it's making our clients restructure how they execute and deliver, and you as well. Cost pressures and inflationary impacts are also driving this acceleration of change. And we're going to explain what that means specifically as it pertains to our businesses. And then the operational efficiencies that resulted from all of this change, right? Not just supply chain, we all saw the disruptions. What this has is a tremendous impact long-term on labor. And if you expected me to talk about technology, which I will, what most of us are today are labor-based organizations, and that's what we started 20 years ago. We brought labor arbitrage to the world. We were the ones that made the world flat. Thomas Friedman's dream, we are the ones that actualized that. But that value of labor, as we move through the last 20 years, looking backward from stage one, we call essentially the IT outsourcing era, to business process outsourcing, and transformational managed services, front office outsourcing. We achieved tremendous value in our industry through low-cost labor. But I remember in the 2000s, early 2000s, and I think about what that low-cost labor looked like. These were IIT, IIM graduates that we were offshoring to, in India particularly. Now we're in Tier 3 cities. The quality of the workforce itself has fallen, but the expectations of the customer has not. We will need to fundamentally change to meet those new expectations, because what is happening in stage 4, where we are today, is a drop in the value of labor. And it's happening not just because the markets are changing, but because technology is disrupting that labor. We made a promise to our clients that we would not only deliver low cost, but we would deliver innovation. And there's question as to whether or not we've delivered on that promise on the innovation side. And that goes for us too. So our clients are not going to wait for us. They are moving to tech disruption. They're moving toward big tech. They're making those investments, and we're seeing the deals, and you guys aren't even there. And it's troublesome, because what we understand and how we see this industry changing, and it's changing so rapidly, that we're going to have to make some changes together to make it work. We call this tech-enabled services. And these tech-enabled services are not just bringing in SAP and tacking on some bodies, or an Oracle, or any other technology provider. Tech-enabled services is about bringing an ecosystem of technology that can be integrated to create customer solutions. And that takes innovation. So we're at this very interesting inflection point where labor is not providing us the value that we expected, And we have disruptive technology that's accelerating that fact. So what does it mean? Well, it means that we've been engaging in a race to the bottom for the last 3 years, and we don't even realize it. Margins are shrinking in managed services deals. We can tell you that because we do the benchmarking. Okay? That doesn't mean that you're not making more money or even growing the top line, but it is forecasting where we're going. And for every cost reduction, our clients are expecting some innovation investment. And where we can't meet that innovation investment, we put more bodies to solve the problem. That's not going to work going forward because we're running out of headroom. There's not enough in the deals, and the client's expectations have not fallen. In fact, they've grown. We all saw this in the last 5 years. So many of the companies here today started making investments in intellectual property, in technology, in AI, proprietary platforms. But what's the big learning? Clients don't want to choose the technology. They don't necessarily want what you're offering. They might, but they want you to be flexible to integrate that technology that's important to them, right? And where are these decisions actually happening? They're not happening at the CIO level. They're happening at the board level. We're on the golf course, we're in a meeting, and somebody says, you know, we ought to really be doing that. And the question is, do our own sales teams have the capacity to be able to sell something that is truly driven by the board? Now you might say, Kevin, we listen to you and we like to hear your speeches, come to this great type of location, and I'm going to share a couple of case studies, real life ones. And fortunately we can. These are Avasant client case studies. And it's coming a little bit later in the presentation, but I think it will make what I'm saying a little more visible. How do we turn the client's lack of satisfaction into something that makes them tickled, right? How do we do it when we're ourselves in a spiral? I call it a death spiral, but I couldn't put death spiral on the screen. I made the team kill that language because we're in a spiral of cost reduction. How do we create 30% savings every time we renegotiate the deal? Customers expect us to bring technology to help solve that problem, but the technology is not mature. It's disparate. It's across multiple vendors. It's not integrated. So now you're starting to see where our value is. When I say our in this presentation, I mean us. Right? Our value is to make sense of what's happening with technology and help our client integrate those solutions and, believe it or not push our own proprietary technology. Because as soon as we do, their radar is going to go up and that's going to cause a problem. Let's dig into this. This is a bit of an eye chart, and we're going to provide this presentation for everyone. But if you look closely at this, traditional labor-based managed services, how are they being disrupted and replaced even by tech-enabled services? So on the left side, you see our traditional IT sourcing services, business process outsourcing, and I've left out the commercial analysis for right now, front office, but just traditional cost-saving services, labor-based services. What you see here from Avasant research is what are the technologies that are disrupting the most those traditional labor-based services? Well, in IT, we already know what they are: AI and even Gen AI, automation, cloud, IoT and VOT. What is VOT? Verses of things. We heard today that Google is not making enough money on the IoT side. They may just pull out of that market altogether. What the versus of things is these are the technologies that are coming, the next-gen technologies that are coming, holograms, biometric analysis. Blockchain, quantum computing, and the like. So as you look at these technologies, the scale of their impact against our traditional business is significant. And so the challenge again for a company like Avasant is how do we orchestrate this with you? How do we work with you? How do we create the strategy with you to do this? This is not an RFP process. And coming from that place where, we've made most of our business by writing RFPs over the years, in the last 5 years, if you look at our revenues, that hasn't been the case. $28 billion of deal flow a year, and it's coming from all different types of sources: governance, benchmarking, strategy. You might be surprised to know strategy is the largest practice at Avasant. Most people don't know that. And then the transaction is sort of like the after effect of all of these things, because all of this culminates into a transaction. 26 weeks to get a deal done? That's outrageous. Our clients don't have patience. They want to get deals done in 45 days. Well, that's also challenging. But if we set the right expectations, we have the right technology partnerships, as system integrators and managed service providers, we can build to that strategy, okay? And it's life or death. If we keep pushing labor-based services, our clients are just ignoring you. We have a deal right now that we're involved in, one of our largest customers, and I got a call from a board member at Microsoft who's in that deal, and it's between Dynamics and Salesforce. I wasn't involved in the details of the deal, but I got off the call and I called up the partner leading the account and I said, "So where's the service provider?" He said, "There is none." I said, "Who's orchestrating the deal?" "We are." I said, "We can't orchestrate the deal. That's not what we do. We're going to finish that strategy, we're going to get the deal done, and then what?" Somebody has to be there to make sure that that deal happens. The client doesn't think so. The client is going to make a decision on a technology in what amounts to over $100 million a year deal. Think about that. So this is real, and it's going to fail. That deal will fail unless we can fix it, and we will. We will fix it. But the question is, are your organizations, particularly your sales organizations, up to par to allow for that type of transformation to happen? Or are we going to keep positioning labor? If you believe that you have to bring your technology and IP to the table, then we lose. We need you to be flexible to work with whatever technology is put in front of you. And that flies against all the things that we've been doing for the last 5 years, all the investments that we've made. I've got friends, right? All of IBM, Accenture, HCL, so many others, Cognizant. I know what technologies you've invested in. You've been pitching how great they are. And it makes me sad because the clients don't care. They want Snowflake. What's Snowflake? Disruptive technologies promise over 50% productivity gains over labor-based solutions. Remember what I told you. Labor-based solutions, we all know this. Cost pressures are driving up. Inflation is forcing us to move to higher labor cost points. And because we have to now shift out of the South China Sea, move to Mexico, move to North America, move to Europe, move to India, we can expect that to continue. So the cost savings that clients are expecting during this transformation is just not there. But it is there from what they're being told by the tech companies. 50% productivity gains. Look, contact centers, human resources, procurement, F&A, all normal managed services work, all disrupted. App development, service desk, disrupted. And look at the numbers. This is startling. So, how is the strategic sourcing decision changing for buyers? And how is it shifting? And it really does include a broader delivery ecosystem. So if you look at the position of managed service providers, there is now a new ecosystem that we have to put our arms around. Global captive centers. This is something that snuck up on us because as we see the growth in GCCs, we see our own advisory business growing in GCCs, we're starting to understand why. Clients want to control their intellectual property. They want to control the technology that's running it. They want to understand how their data can generate more revenue. Who's running these GCCs? Service providers, right? That's interesting, but that's a shift. And that's a shift that impacts margin with managed services. Because now you're acting in a staff augmentation capacity, supporting somebody else's center, versus outsourcing it and running it and creating your own efficiencies. The Big Four. Well, this is interesting. Traditional system integrators now doubling down. We don't care about the technology. We don't even need to own it. We are going to focus on integrating it. And by the way, that business line has grown by some $22 billion. And I'm going to show that as well. Big tech. Google, Amazon, Microsoft. They've embraced disruptive technologies, and I'm going to share a little bit about how that is changing the game, and I gave you an example of one of our customers. Who are the tech innovators? Well, they're in play here. They're the VC-backed companies, the small players that are the darlings of the boardroom, that are screwing up deals because we don't even know how to integrate them, but yet everybody wants to work with them. And then, of course, our traditional business, which is a labor-based business, but we have to pivot. We have to pivot to embrace both big tech, the tech innovators, and even in some cases our competitors in the Big Four. Global captives, we got to own that challenge versus letting it being imposed on us. Global captive centers are becoming more market-facing. Clients are using them to drive revenue generation in the regions that they're moving to. They want to do R&D there. 65% of GCCs are the hub for business digital tech delivery. Over 1 million new people hired just in the GCCs, just in India. 65% of GCCs are using talent from traditional managed service providers. 500 new MNCs are setting up captive centers by FY25, and we're tracking this data. By the way, this has become a big business of ours. Over 35% of these GCCs are de-risking rapidly from the South China Sea. So nobody would have thought that I want to leave the Philippines if I've got a BPO and I've got a customer contact center. Nobody thought. But now, what does it look like in 5 years? Is this going to become a hot zone? What is it going to look like? Well, if I'm going to move that GCC to another location, most likely more costly, I'm going to have to rely on new tech and automation, and I'm not going to move and just replace it with people, right? I'm not going to take that old model and move it forward. The Big Four are growing in technology-enabled services. They've added collectively $22 billion in revenue. $22 billion. Where is it coming from? Over 60% growth came from consulting and tech advisory alone. So the big growth areas are consulting. Innovative tech-based service offerings are replacing traditional managed services. We know that, I mentioned that. And 35% increase in Big Four India GCC headcount. So this is really interesting. What about disruptive tech? Well, this is exciting, and clients, as I said, these companies are the darling of customers. Over 500% growth in VC and PE investments. And let me tell you what the Cerberuses or Recognize or Frank D'Souza's company, what are they telling us? What they're telling us is that they are willing to put big money behind these companies. And the question really is, how is that affecting the boardroom? Well, let me tell you what they're telling the boardroom. You've had this traditional model. You've been labor-based. That's not the future. We're the future. You're losing on the top line. You don't have margin. Inflation is up. People costs are up. Whether the technology works or not, it is being sold. The dream is being sold. Right? And as we look forward, this is not a doom and gloom scenario, but we know the layoffs are coming on the labor side. We know that shadow is over this room. And they're not just small layoffs. We are talking in every major, we're talking about 15 to 20% headcount reductions over the next 5 years. Replacing with what? Much of this disruptive tech. Are you willing to bank all of your deals on your own IP? It's time we partner with these companies. Part of what we are trying to do at Avasant through our Tech Innovators program is to certify and evaluate these companies so that we can integrate them into the managed services ecosystem so that we can actually achieve real results. We're doing that through our research program, and the program, by the way, has been very successful, and that's going to hyper-accelerate opportunities with you. Because what we're trying to teach our customers is, you remember those days when you bought software with a credit card or as-a-service services, and you started paying for it, and you had all kinds of dilution of value, and your credit cards got charged every month, but that software just kind of sat on the shelf? Well, that's what's going to happen if you buy these new tech services without, or tech solutions without the enabled services part. What is big tech doing? Well, look, across AI, biometric technology, blockchain, our research is telling us that they are all making significant investments. They are also acquiring some of these darlings, these small disruptive tech players, okay? And they are bidding directly against you, and you know it. Look at network. I mean, there's so much, I'll have to wait till private conversations because there's some of this I just can't say, with my team recording me and all of you listening and taking notes. But the reality is they are competing head to head. And it's not like, look, at some level, Avasant, we're agnostic. We're not here to save the MSP industry. Okay? What we are here to do, though, is recognize that there is tremendous value in this industry. It is going through a disruption right now, and we have to figure out how to make it work going forward. That we do understand. Aside from the fact that most of our friends are in the industry, we'd like to see them continue succeeding. Providence, one of our clients. So they're increasing their direct partnership with big tech. And as you know, we've been working with this client for many, many years. This particular case study is actually a public case study. And they've entered into a multi-year strategic partnership to address clinical and operational needs with emerging tech. This is vertically driven solutions. Okay? That's the other leg of the stool here. These tech solutions are vertically driven. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to one of you, and we're talking about healthcare or some industry, and you say, oh, we have a platform that does that. Why? Sell it if you can. You need to support every emerging technology. We are not tech companies. Someone's going to quote me on that, and I'm going to get shot. We are not. We are labor-based companies. We are process experts. We are efficiency experts. We are scale. Partnership includes an innovative facility showcasing cloud, AI, data, and analytics. They aim to accelerate these innovations and bring them directly into the hospital. So this is exciting. 35% of Avasant clients are developing some industry-specific solution around technology that they choose. That they choose. One more case study, Mary Kay. This is another IT innovation and cost reduction focus initially, but they're also migrating to tech-enabled services. So they went from 100% managed services to this new tech-enabled model, which includes a system integrator and service providers. But they're expecting 50% increase in automation in the deal. There's going to be a reduction of 20% in managed services, and that's mainly driven by cloud migration. They're bringing in new technologies to support their captive center, starting to make sense, right? Their captive center where they're building new IP and even planning to test their products. They are quickly and rapidly divesting out of China because they have a China strategy that is driving them out of China, and we know why. 100% e-commerce driven by Salesforce platform adoption. Think about that. They decided that they wanted to go to Salesforce. That wasn't your decision, that wasn't ours. That decision was made by somebody before we were ever engaged. Okay? So where's the cost reduction and the innovation, rebalancing innovation coming from? Well, stage one, IT services outsourcing, 80% was based on people, right? 80% on people. We know that story. As we also look at BPO in the early days, again, 80% on people. That's where the value is coming from. But as we move to transformational managed services, transformational also means not just moving to new technologies, but also moving to the front office. We start seeing a shift. But look where tech-enabled services takes us. 60% on the technology side. 20% on the labor side. That's where we're moving right now and pivoting to. All right? Now, there are many Avasant partners and fellows in the room today, and I think when they see when they've seen this data, it's been as shocking to them, as I think it is hopefully to all of you, that this is a moment in time where we can make some changes. What are we doing? What are we planning? Well, our journey from managed services to tech-enabled services means we expect that we're going to continue with traditional managed services deals at least for the next 5 years. Okay. But we are seeing these new types of deals come in, okay? And those deals have to be sort of rethought through, right? And these are primarily deals that are being driven by some business necessity, right? Healthcare vertical, tremendous cost pressure, desire to bring better quality healthcare to patients, right? Aerospace and defense. expanding, vertical, driven by real-life needs, growing in India, Western Europe, and expanding of offerings. So the enterprise wants this value. They want operational efficiency, access to advanced tech solutions, increased scalability and flexibility. They want supply chain optimization, all the things on this chart, right? As managed services providers, we are looking to partner with you more and more in these sole source transactions where we can help identify the technology that the customer wants and make you a partner in executing it. In some cases, it might be your existing customer, and they want to accelerate rapidly with a certain technology. We're going to convince them that they can't do it alone, that they need help, that this is an integrated deal that's not just about the technology but also about the people. It's still about people, process, and technology, even if the percentages have shifted. So I'm excited about this journey in a way because, you know, I've watched this industry as an advisor for 24 years, 25 years. I've been through all the eras of this as a leader, and so I feel like I have some perspective. This has happened before, right? We had our, dot-com boom, we had the bust, we had the credit crisis, we had COVID. This is just another shift. The problem with this shift is we're all behind. Because the speed that the VCs are investing in disruptive technologies and PEs, and the speed at big tech and the way that they're making their investments means that we have to move very, very fast. So the recommendations are simple. They're very, very easy. The way forward for managed services providers is to demonstrate the value, the people value, and our knowledge of these technologies. Invest in partnerships with disruptive tech, but not just one, right? We did that before. SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, we had to make relationships with all of them. But are we willing to do the same with disruptive tech, or do we think that we have to buy it? Don't buy it. Restructure your delivery locations and models. Become less people dependent. Introduce automation to make our centers and our activities more efficient and higher productivity. Those opportunities bring us back to the United States, bring us back to now India, which is not necessarily always a low-cost center. Hire value people and produce margin through the technology. And revise our internal sales incentives. Our own sales teams, as executives here today, our own sales teams are killing us. We are putting pressure on them to win deals every day, and the clients are putting pressure on them to save money every day so they can take that money and invest it somewhere else. Well, that's the race to the bottom. We have to figure out how to restructure those incentives, even if that means that there is some margin dilution in the short term. The deals of today are requiring new levels of creativity and solutioning. We're preparing for it. We are there. We are seeing them every day. Today, when you talk to the Avasant partners and fellows, talk to them. Ask them about what those deals look like. This is an opportunity for us to share information and to identify opportunities to continue working together to continue to support this market. Build strategic relationships. That's the theme of this event. And I look forward to talking with all of you. And thank you so much. I've run way over, but I think this is an important subject, and it is how we're kicking off this discussion today. Thank you.